We were super busy. I think we were probably doing back-to-back about 12-hour days for those, pretty much from the cyclone to about the day of the flood. So Kuranda got hit really hard. We had a lot of down trees, down power lines. Places like Masons Road were hit really hard. So we're doing kind of like a lot of chainsaw jobs, a lot of tarps, holes in the roof, stuff like that. Kind of really just flat out pretty much. Yeah, well, Kuranda's lucky because we didn't have too much, but we did have a lot of places kind of just doing a lot of kind of defensive sandbagging of like kind of, roller doors or like people's kind of sliding doors and stuff like that, kind of just kind of around. But a lot of people were quite independent and were, self-serving themselves, so it was good. Myself, I was actually out of action. I was flooded in completely by the point. So on the night just before the flooding all started, we were actually kind of knocked off and we we're going to have that day off. So we'd all headed home and stuff. And then, yeah, it just started raining and it didn't stop. And then in the morning, I was completely flooded in. So I was stuck just kind of coordinating and fielding calls and kind of looking at kind of assessing jobs for the next day or where we need to be and what we need to be doing. I think it was really interesting kind of seeing how many people realised that, especially a lot of the Myola communities, how much they had realised now that they've been already stuck for 5 days. And with this, rain just gone through, it was going to be even longer. And we had a lot of calls for kind of resupply and stuff because people, had prepared for, they told prepare for 3, but they prepared for 5. And then, now it's looking like it's going to be a week. So that was different. Normally you don't see as much of those as we normally will ever have, but yeah. We stopped operations kind of thing. We were fairly operational just in the coordination sense overnight. But come the morning, about 6 a.m, we finally were able to get out. I was able to get over where I was flooded in. And we kind of started operations and kind of trying to kind of see where we could actually get to. So a lot of what I was doing to begin with was just driving around and seeing where could we actually reach at that point, because no one was really quite sure yet. So checking out things like the bridge right near the school, which was, still massively over at that point. It was, I think, over the road sign by the time we got there and stuff like that. But yeah, so it was just crazy seeing how high the water had actually gotten and how much, how many trees had come down with just how wet the ground had gotten. I think probably the highest I would have heard about would have been how close it got to the actual Kuranda Bridge. I wasn't able to see it myself, but I heard people showing me photos and people saying how close it actually got. So I think it was almost at 15 metres at the Myola measuring station, which was insane, unheard of, like there's just couldn't even imagine that, And it's even worse, we were at properties doing washouts and, you're standing on the ground floor and you look up to this 2-story building and, it's about a metre and a half off the bottom, off the second story. And you're like, that's crazy. That's, how many, that's 3, 4, 5 metres at this house alone, So yeah, it's role of the SES. It's, we get a lot of calls for assistance and that's what we're here to do as best we can. My role was mainly, I was actually in the field coordinating. I was the kind of on the ground leader in the field. And we had people here doing ops, kind of controlling and trying to manage us and see where we can go and can't go and what we should be focusing on prioritising. And I was just there on the field making sure, we did the job safely and got it all got home. I think before the floods, everyone had trees down, massive black wattles and trees on houses, stuff like that. And I think after the floods, the most calls we got were definitely kind of flood-ins, asked for like resupply, people running out of food and fuel and generators and stuff like that. And then a lot of, after the water subsided, then it was just washouts. We had tons of washouts to do, a lot of properties got hit quite hardly. I think it was, a lot of people were very devastated, understandably. A lot of people had lost everything. I think what really stood out to me though was the resilience. A lot of the time when we actually rocked up to a property, with the fireys and stuff, people had already started cleaning up and they'd already started, trying to get the furniture out of the way or even trying to sweep the mud out of their properties or, trying their best they could to get their life back on track with, before we even got there. Yeah, I think, definitely when you hear things about like the mud army and stuff like that, that was really impressive how so many people had kind of grouped together to help their neighbours and stuff. We heard a lot about, we were flagged down by a lot of people grabbing us to tell us about properties that had been flooded where, the homeowner was rather just too prideful or, really struggled asking for assistance because, they were just in such a vulnerable state they didn't want to ask for help. And so a lot of people flagged us down and told us about their neighbours or, even hearing about people who'd gone and grabbed their neighbours from their properties and took them to their place to stay and live while the flood was going on, and even now while the place is getting fixed. So at the moment, we've actually kind of really started slowing down a lot. Our role as an emergency services we've kind of finished up a lot of our stuff. We're still very busy with other areas, so a lot of our members have just came back from deployment from places like Townsville or Wujal. But locally, we'll kind of really finish. Now we're kind of just trying to function more as a on standby again and see, kind of assess what happened and where we need to improve and what can be done next time around, and kind of take notes and review. I think it's hard. I think it's always hard to predict an event like that was just so out of the blue. Like I said, we were planning to stand down for the day of the flood. We were planning to take a day off, and because we'd pretty much finished everything, we were like, oh, cyclone's over, it's all done. So it's kind of hard, but I think it's trouble with infrastructure is, you can build a bridge so high, but even the new bridges would have gone underwater and people would have been cut off. So it's kind of hard. I think maybe having a bit more of a community kind of foundations to kind of set up what to do when flood recovery, when we need to start flood recovery and what can be done, and kind of setting up infrastructure around, how insurance companies are involved. A lot of what we would rock up to a job, we would get there and we'd get out, start cleaning, and the homeowner would inform us that the insurance company told us we couldn't touch anything. And not until the assessor would come, and there's some places where we tried 3 or 4 times and they said the insurance still hasn't come. So yeah, it's difficult to start cleaning up and starting the process when we can't touch anything. I think it'd always be good to have more volunteers. I think a lot of people don't realise how much they can gain through during the SS in terms of skills and qualification. But yeah, it's always good to have, the more members the merrier, of course. I think it would be always good to have more people during the SES. I think really that, anyone in the community, they're not alone. I think that's probably the main thing. I think no matter how isolated you think you are, I think there's always people who are going to come help you. I think, even void SES or emergency services in general, I think even your neighbours, I think that's the biggest thing I saw, neighbours helping neighbours and community helping each other. And I think that was probably, you're not alone in that.